Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sarah Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward.
And today we have Lilly Da Rocha.
Lilly is a barber at the Good Hair Co. in Kitchener.
She's also an incredible artist, and we dig into how that started for her and how it's been helping her through the pandemic.
We also talk about riding a motorcycle.
I know. I'm so fascinated by them, but a little scared.
Vroom, vroom.
Here she is, Lilly Da Rocha.
Welcome to Bonn Park.
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 Do you enjoy Bonn Park podcast?
If so, we would really appreciate it if you
Leave a review.
like, rate, subscribe, but most importantly,
Share directly from the platforms.
with your family and friends. That's the best way to get the word out to everybody, and more people will get to see our show that way. So click those like buttons and share our show. Thank you.
Thanks.
On with the show. This is it. Bonn Park is supported by the St. Jacobs Farmers Market. The market is a community landmark of more than a half century and is the largest year-round farmers market in Canada. Whatever you crave, you'll find it there. There's country classics like fresh apple fritters, cinnamon rolls, and Oktoberfest sausage on a bun, and new favorites like corn-wrapped vegan tamales, Greek gyros, and blooming onions. With almost 300 food and artisan vendors on site, there's something for everyone, and it makes for a great day trip with family or friends. The St. Jacobs Market is open Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays during the summer. Stay up to date on hours and events by following the St. Jacobs Farmers Market on Facebook, Instagram, or at stjacobsmarket.com. And here's a word from Summer.
I love going to the market with my family. There's so much to see and do. I love trying all the different foods, and it's a great tradition for our family.
Lilly Da Rocha, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
We're very excited to talk to you.
So how do you two know each other?
So Lilly and I actually don't know each other. I would say we're IG friends and we're just meeting for the first time today, but I know you, air quotes, through who I would call the kids. My best friend's daughter, Sydney, and her husband, Peter.
I'm one of the barbers.
At Good Hair Co. You're a barber, you're a motorcyclist, and an artist. A multimedia artist, I would say, or is it strictly painting?
Strictly painting. Yeah, I feel like the pandemic has really forced me to go back to what I used to love to do, which was paint. And back in the 90s, if anyone's out there that can remember that.
Wasn't that long ago?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it was that long ago when I think about, like, I remember when I started college, the internet was not a thing. And anonymity was very much a thing. And so when I talk now, I always have to check myself to, like, who's my audience and will they understand what a rotary phone is? Because if they don't know what a rotary phone is, then I have to be like the Lilly now as opposed to the Lilly then. And the Lilly then loved painting and I loved being creative. I was always like just the kid that would take a piece of wood and paint it and make something out of it. So during the pandemic, I haven't been able to work. Obviously, hairdressers and barbers in Ontario have sort of been out of work. And so my partner, who is amazing and very supportive and always wants me to shine, said, why don't you start making some art? Because our house has a lot of art in it. And for a long time, I would just do it for friends and I would just give them things because I just liked creating, but I don't like the whole monetary thing about it. I'm not good at that. And I don't know how to sell myself in that way. I just
None of us do.
Yeah. So thank you to the pandemic. I'm now sort of going back to what I loved. And so back to the 90s, as I was saying, I went to Fanshawe College for graphic design. And that's where I sort of honed in on like different mediums and all this great stuff. And we were introduced to computers for the first time. And I was like, what? It was pretty amazing. So now everybody and their sister can like just go on any sort of Mac product and create the most amazing things. But back then it was like pen and paper and pencil crayons and all that good stuff. So
it's so refreshing to speak to somebody who remembers pre-internet times.
yeah.
I just watched The Handmaid's Tale. God help me, because it's really hard to try and erase it from my mind. But I feel like the internet was like the before times.
And we actually say that in our household all the time, the before times, except it's really about COVID now.
Well, that's true. Actually, it has a double meaning there too. But I also love talking about the before times with the internet. I love that the rotary phone is your benchmark for, are you pre-rotary or post?
The funny thing is that I had a friend in London, Ontario, who had an art shop, and I would decoupage old telephones and different themes and whatnot, because he was a friend of mine. He was like, whatever you guys want to create, just put it in there. And so I did. And I remember the day he came to me and said, the rotary phones are really cool, but we're getting kids coming in not understanding how to use them. And so then I changed it to like the touch tone ones. Yeah. And I remember being like, wow, the rotary phone is no longer something the university kids understand. Okay. And so, yeah, it's just sort of my reference of like, you're old.
I feel it's awesome. There's this great YouTube video of, this is old people, right? I'm going to explain to you a YouTube video I have seen poorly. There's this great YouTube video of these parents trying to show their teenage boys how to use a rotary phone. They just put it in front of them and it's connected. And they're like, how do you think you use it? And it is hilarious. Like every time they think they make a mistake with the numbers, they pick up the receiver and hang it up again. It's just like no clue, right? And it's so funny that
obsolete right there.
It's so obsolete already. It's so funny, like there would have been an effort to call 911 in those days. Like it might have meant life or death.
You better have meant it. You better have meant it.
Did you guys have the kitchen long rotary phone?
Yep, we should
with the big long cord.
Yeah,
and we had like a phone bent, like a stool.
Yeah,
in the kitchen.
Yeah,
there was kind of a phone area.
That's awesome.
I watched an episode of Designing Women last night.
Oh my gosh.
Annie Potts, Dixie Carter, Delta Burke, and Jean Smart, right? And I hadn't seen it in ages. And I think it might be early 90s, just because we're talking about the 90s here. And it got me looking at a couple things. I was looking at what they were wearing, first of all.
Oh, they dress like my mother. If you ever wonder what my mother looks like, Delta Burke.
And their hair. And but also it got me thinking about who I was in the 90s. So in my early 20s, how much I loved Designing Women and Golden Girls and shows like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
But anyways, it's interesting because when I think about the 90s, I think about how I probably wouldn't like that 20-something-year-old version of myself very much. When you think about yourself in the 90s, what do you think you would see in yourself if you could kind of go back in time and hang out and see yourself for a bit?
Oh wow. I feel like, the beginning of the 90s, I was in high school. Here's the thing. Like, I started grade 9 we moved a week before grade 9 started. So I started a brand new school in a brand new town, Guelph, Ontario, from Scarborough, Ontario. So I felt like I was in the country with a whole bunch of like country kids, which is hilarious. I think about it now. Mm-hmm. That was before I met like kids from Elora and Mount Forest, who really were the country kids. So I was pretty shy that first year of high school, and so pretty introverted, I suppose. But if I think of like the 90s and my formative self in the 90s and then my 20s when I'm in college, I was pretty outgoing. I always like making people laugh, and still like that. Like I still like to be silly and what have you. But man, you couldn't pay me enough to go back. Like I don't go back there. I don't
pay me to go back to high school. Nope.
No. Yeah. I feel like we go through this trajectory in our lives where we're supposed to have those awkward times, and we're all supposed to have those times where you're like super opinionated and don't know anything. And those are the things that I'd rather just forget about.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Those times. But I love the 90s though. It was the anonymity part is what I miss about it. Like being able to just walk down the street and seeing people's faces as opposed to the top of their heads and stuff, little things like that. Like as far as a societal shift, it's different, but I miss 90s music too. I really like 90s music. So
I miss 90s music, but I could live this life happily if two bands that were huge in the 90s never made another sound on this earth again. And they are Oasis and Pearl Jam. I'm sorry, world. No.
I'm with you on Oasis. I have a soft spot for Pearl Jam.
And I respect people who do, because it's nostalgic. They're talented. All of it's just, for me, it was part of an era and part of a time with just like, I can't. I just can't.
Yeah.
It was pouring out of everywhere at that age. And it was sort of like, remember when the beautiful version of Sinead O'Connor's beautiful version of Nothing Compares to You came out, and it was earth-shattering, groundbreaking. It was something that all of us could appreciate from any walk of life. But then it became like, I cannot hear this again. I can't.
Well, I'm going to say something a little controversial.
Do it.
I kind of feel that way about the hip.
I hear you. That is not an uncommon theory.
Yeah, I remember being in high school, and like
Or an uncommon opinion, I should say.
Really liked them, but I felt like it was never for me. Like, it was never geared for me. It was never sold for me. It was like you had to be dating the boy who liked that, and then all of a sudden you found out
that too. It didn't help.
Yeah, I didn't, and so therefore, yeah, I never got into the hip.
There's we're going so off track here. I swear we're going to talk about you, Lily, but
this is great.
If you're familiar with both Sloan and the band Consolidated, very different bands. Sloan has a song called Coax Me, one of my favorites. There's a line in there that says, if I think Consolidated's okay, it's not the band I hate, it's their fans. And local musician Paul McLeod used to cover that song, and R.I.P. Paul McLeod. And he used to change it to, it's not the hip I hate, it's their fans. And you can relate. I love you all, Canadians, but there's just a thing sometimes, Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a uniform and a way you would carry yourself.
Yeah.
It was.
Okay, let's steer back to you. So the first piece of art that I saw of yours online, it's probably Sydney. Lori shared it. And it was like this black and white piece with these sort of intertwined figures.
Entangled, yeah.
And I was like, oh, she's obviously found some famous art somewhere that nobody in our lifestyle will ever be able to afford. Let me click on this and see what this is. Holy moly. This was your first piece that you posted and said, the pandemic is crushing me, basically. I'm paraphrasing a lot here. I can't work. My partner, what you said earlier, my partner has pushed me to go back to my one true love, and I'm going to do it. And I thought, I'm going to follow this journey for sure. This piece it's so cohesive. There's like yummy, beautiful composition that not everybody understands. Subject matter that you can kind of get behind, and like texture that, like, I want to touch it. I want to touch these works. And then looking through your collection of work since then, because that was a while ago now. How long ago was that black and white piece posted? Maybe 6 months?
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
And I'm following you on this journey, and I'm saying, okay, Lily does not stick. You're not a one-trick pony here. Like, you don't stick to one theme and one story like a lot of artists do. And if that works for them, that's awesome. But there's recently you posted this stained glass piece. Like, I thought that was stained glass. I was like, oh, she's knows how to do stained glass and ironwork. Okay.
I wish.
Oh, I know, right?
I would be like the super lesbian of all time if I could do like all like ironwork as well. Come on.
Yeah, blacksmithing.
Yeah, it's so moving. I want to hear about where these ideas are coming from, what materials you're using. I don't even know where to start. Marshall, can I just like come over to you and let you start this line of questioning?
Well, I was going to ask you about painting after not painting for some time, and the feelings that come with that when you actually pick up tools and start making something. It's a pretty amazing feeling, isn't it?
It is. And I had a bit of a transformative 2020 in that I had a relationship of 22 years sort of end. And so I didn't paint for a little while as a result. Just kind of getting my head around a lot of things. And so when I started putting acrylic to canvas, which is mainly what I work with, I felt like, oh, this I know how to do. Like, this makes me feel good. This makes me feel like I'm not messing anything up. This makes me feel like I understand who I am. And then I had like a new budding relationship start at the same time. So all of a sudden I felt like this like vividness in my life. And it helped. Like, all of it sort of just came together really nicely. And so, yeah. And now with the pandemic, it's like, what am I doing? Like, what am I supposed to be doing?
But how beautiful that this turnaround happened where you find art again and you find love again, and it's all happening at the same time. It can't be an accident, really.
No, I don't. I mean, I've always painted. I've always like dabbled. If I was like, wanting to do something creative, I'd grab a little canvas. I'd do something. But now I feel like I need to do it for my mental health. And I have like this amazing person in my life who is also really encouraging, and like, it's amazing to see someone's eyes light up when I create something, and I'm really like, I'm hard on myself a lot. And she's like, this is amazing. So the stained glass piece was because of her. We were watching a design show. Someone had made some mosaic, a really cool mosaic piece. And we were thinking about our little shed and something fun we could do to it. And she's like, how about a mosaic? And I'm like, well, I don't know how to do mosaics. And she's like, what about some stained glass? And I thought, well, I don't know how to do stained glass, but I could paint it. And sort of came out of that. So I looked at some stained glass artists and like kind of what they do, and sort of where, how light kind of draws through glass, and I try to replicate it. And so, yeah, it's been probably like the most excited people have gotten is like, first of all, botanicals. People love flowers, and I don't know if that's always been a thing. It's never been
a whole thing, right? I think it's a new wave again.
Is it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I know like the whole plant scene is like huge. When I hear about like young people and how much they're paying for like a tiny little cutting, I'm like, what? But painting flowers is different to me, but I don't know. Yeah, it seems to be resonating with people, and I'm really enjoying it. Is
there certain colors that are part of your palette? Usually I know for me, like when I painted, that was like cadmium yellow medium. Winsor Newton is just like gold in a tube. Are there certain colors that, or cerulean blue is really nice too. There's certain colors you just kind of go to, even for like an underpainting or a wash afterwards or something.
Honestly, my tried and true is black. As soon as I can add a little bit of black to anything, I feel like it just grounds everything and it makes it pop. At the end of the day, I'm still a graphic designer at heart. So I like things to be like just to pop out of canvas, and black always just seems to do that for me. When I don't use black, I feel uncomfortable. I'm like, what's going on here? So I always have to throw it in.
I love that everyone has their sort of go-to color. And now that you say that you're a graphic artist at heart, this is starting to make sense to me, because I hear Marshall talking with artists and speaking just about his own art, about acrylic paints. And I've tried those in my life. I've said this on the podcast before. I don't know how y'all do it. That is a tough medium. With oil paint, for me, at least you can like smoosh it together and make it behave. Acrylic is unforgiving. I don't know how you guys are creating this kind of stuff with acrylic, but
it's liquid plastic.
Yeah. But like that stained glass piece, I can't even imagine how you would have started that with acrylic paints, but it makes sense to me because graphic artists are usually neat and tidy and getting that design so precise. But this is sort of a different way to create something like that stained glass piece, I think.
I've been trying, I sort of wrap around I've never really done watercolor. I mean, I did it when I was in college because it was a prerequisite, like one of the things you had to dabble with. Mm-hmm. And it made me feel really uncomfortable. But I sort of went back to that for that stained glass piece because it just, it just made the piece seem a little bit softer and whatnot.
Back to the theory of it, or was that one actually watercolor? And I'm saying it's
no, back to the theory of it. I used like acrylic paint as if it was watercolor paint. So I just like really
layering.
Yeah, it was a lot of layering. Yeah.
It's I think people refer to it as glazing or like doing a wash kind of, like it's yeah.
These are like I mean, as much as I went to college for art, I'm no art history major or even know probably the proper terminology. I just like to create.
I
Yeah,
think that's okay.
yeah,
Yeah, when Sarah was talking about texture, I remember seeing some Vincent van Gogh pieces in person, and you're like, oh, look at that, you know, like
They're always smaller than I thought they
yeah,
were.
smaller, but so incredibly thick, you know what I mean, and delicious. You just want to lick it, you know.
yes.
And so you must enjoy that part of it too. Then just the layering and the almost you can treat a canvas like it's almost sculptural, eh?
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes, you know, my mind thinks that it knows where it's going to go, and then it sort of just a happy surprise happens, and you're like, wow, I like that better. And so I feel like I'm just kind of discovering what I'm also capable of doing at this point, because sky's the limit, really. That's just, I guess, a motto for life. But
and you're rediscovering this side. So you're taking sort of your old tools and skills, and like you said, you've always done it, but not seriously in the last few decades. So you're taking these old skills and applying them to your grown-up life experience.
Yeah.
And what's coming out of it is so different. So that black and white piece was like, was it for like a fundraiser for the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region?
No, that one wasn't. That one
Okay.
sort of kind of kicked off like a little bit of what I like to call a teaser for people. Like, this is coming. This is what I'm doing. And it certainly got people kind of to notice what I was doing. Yeah. And so it helped them stay on my journey. And so that's when I started sort of revealing the 4 pieces that I had done for the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region.
And was that the one that was more like a comic book style with maybe a Wonder Woman face?
Yeah, I did the Wonder Woman one for Sask, which went over really, really well. And I did an abstract. I like painting women. It's a thing.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Most people do.
Yeah. And I did a couple of abstract pieces. Yeah. It was sort of like a well-rounded, you know, kind of a curated series, so that there was a little bit of something for everyone in that. And it was going to an amazing cause. So, yeah.
When you paint women, do you see something in yourself in those women you paint? Do you know little I don't know, sometimes somebody can have a bit of melancholy or certain feelings about the way they can kind of carry themselves all day, and you can see that in their work when they paint other people sometimes.
Yeah. So I tend to paint, the women that I tend to paint are not me. And so I have to go to like my softer, more feminine side and try to find that. Sometimes I don't find that in myself. So when I put it to canvas, it's a little bit easier, for sure.
Has the pandemic kind of revealed things to you, or given you little gifts that maybe you didn't know, didn't have before, or kind of didn't know maybe something you wanted? I find there's lots of little things that have happened in the past year that wouldn't have happened without the pandemic.
I'm not going to lie. The pandemic has really made, like, I've struggled quite a bit. I've always looked at myself as a worker bee. My parents did a really good job of raising someone that's like, you're supposed to work and you're supposed to provide for your family, and that's your life. And so I've always worked since I was 14. Mm. And now I'm not working, and it's something that I'd love to do, and I'm not allowed to do it. And so the gift, I guess, is like being able to slow down. That's for sure. And really kind of reevaluating what I think is important in my life. Because I don't know if being a worker bee is something I value in myself anymore.
You're speaking my language, Lily.
Yeah. I mean, I became a barber at 40. So I've already done the reinventing of myself.
Same. You're definitely speaking my language. I've always been a worker bee. I'm busy as fuck was my badge of honor. I've just recently broken that cycle, and I'm still recovering. During the pandemic, when everybody was baking bread and finding themselves, I never worked so much in my whole life. And And I'm trying to find that peace now. That's what the pandemic has sort of done for me, but it's tough. It's tough to break that cycle of I work all the time and that's my identity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one thing if you're working all the time and it's something that you love, but I did something for 20 years that I didn't love.
Right.
And
what were you doing before?
I was in automotive for 20 years. Yeah. Bit of a grind.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you know, like my dad always says, you're supposed to find a good job and provide for your family. And that's what I did. And I did that well. But after 20 years, they were like, thanks for years of service, but we're gonna have to let you go. And like the very next day I enrolled in hair school. That's it. Because I was already doing hair at home. I had like a little barber shop, Wolfie's Den, in my house. And so it was like just something fun I was doing, and helping people feel and look their best at the time. Because even just 5 years ago, it was hard for someone like me, being a female identified person who just wants a short guy's haircut, to find a place here in town to cut my hair. It drove me crazy. And I worked in automotive, so I always had guys who were like, why are you paying so much for a haircut? You're an idiot. And I'm like, yeah, I know I'm an idiot.
Well, they're getting their $12 haircuts at the strip mall, right? Yeah.
I wish I could just go into, you know, Johnny's barbershop and have them go, yeah, sure, I'll just give you a short haircut. But they won't. They didn't. They wouldn't. So I beat them at their game. I just started my own.
Isn't that the great success story of so many beginnings is you found a gap in the industry and made your own way to fill it?
Well, I didn't even realize that it was a gap until I started talking to other people in my community. And I thought, wait a sec. At the time you think, oh, this is just happening to me. And it wasn't just happening to me. It was happening to a lot of like young, kids that are just coming out as trans, and like they just want a haircut and they want to feel validated. And then there was like no place they could go to, and they're going to a hair salon being misgendered and then asked to pay like double the price. It just didn't seem right to me in my heart. And I knew what I went through, so I can only imagine the amount of like strength and perseverance that younger people who are trying to find their way and how that felt. So yeah, we needed a safe space. I was willing to create a safe space in my home, which I did.
I think that's fantastic.
So Lily, when you wrap up a chapter in your life, like your 20-year career in automotive, do you look back on it? I heard you say it can be a grind, but can you see it kind of like as a body of work? You know what I mean? Like you began a job, you worked, you evolved, you would have physically and emotionally evolved. And can you look back on it as a journey in that way, or was it a job? Yeah.
100%. When I look back at my time in automotive for 20 years, I don't even recognize myself. And that is huge for me. Like, I feel like, this sounds crazy, but at middle age, I'm living more authentically than I ever did in that time. And I'm like really gentle with myself about it. That time was necessary. It also helped me evolve into the person that I am today. And I also had like a lot of great people around me at the time that could see me and did see me. And I had some really great friends there as well. But at the end of the day, I did really just treat it like a job, not even realizing the impact it would feel to walk away from it, and how amazing that would feel to walk away from it. Because I really, I held on to that, like that good life, as they like to say, you make good money and you have good things and you have nice things, like all that stuff just melted away. And I didn't realize how unimportant it was. But at the time in my 20s, underemployed and looking for direction, it really did provide that. That's for sure. So I don't have any ill will at all, but I do very much realize how much I was treating it like a job as opposed to now. And what I currently do, I make a lot less, but wow.
Okay, I have to discuss this with you because, you said earlier when we were talking about art that your partner is super supportive, but you're very hard on yourself. And we haven't talked to an artist who hasn't said that they're hard on themselves. Lots of imposter syndrome, lots of self-doubt. It's part of the process, I think. If you can find one who isn't hard on themselves, they're probably doing very well. Probably super successful. And then I love that you said that you were gentle on yourself about closing this automotive life chapter of your life. And then like, I have to tell you how I felt when I left my job recently, which is like, I thought the world would end if I didn't work there. I ate, slept, breathed, dreamt, worked this job and didn't know that I was doing that, but I did. And nothing has fallen apart. I worried more about money and financials when I had more of it. When I had more of it coming in, it was more on my mind and always a stress. And now, it's what I'm doing is working. And I've, like I said, I'm healing from this part of my life, but again, nothing has changed. I really thought the world would be upside down and that everything would fall apart, and it's only gotten better.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to wrap your head around. And I think that's part of the reason why sometimes when I'm struggling with the pandemic and like finding myself again and who am I? I'm like, I already did this. You already did this. I always have to remind myself, Lily, you've done this. You've reinvented yourself.
Old hat.
Something. You can do this again. And so now, the thing I remember the most when that was happening, when I was changing professions and I was just going for it, I was so hyper focused. And I remember like my sister and like people around me were like, you're such an inspiration. This is amazing. Like, you're really just going for it. But they would say it in such a way where I'm like, is this crazy? Are you guys think I'm not? Like, is this on here? You guys think like, whoa, I hope she's okay after this. And I am. And so when I like think of my niece and my nephew and they're like looking at me like, wow, Tia Lil is now a barber. It happened. You are doing it. And now I'm also cutting his hair in the garage. It's a full circle moment where I'm like, anything is possible. And I didn't think this was possible in life, especially at middle age. Like, you're supposed to be winding down and relaxing. And it's like, no, you can like start over.
Nope. Just hitting reset and seeing what happens.
Honestly.
Sara, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors, the St. Jacobs Farmers Market, and one of their vendors in the main market building, Cedarwood Honey.
Hi, I'm Karen from Cedarwood Honey. We're just located outside of Harriston, and we're here at the St. Jacobs Farmers Market. Cedarwood Honey is by Henry Cornelson. He's just outside of Harriston, Ontario, which is about 45 minutes outside of Kitchener-Waterloo area. He's been a beekeeper for over 25 years. He's family-run business. He loves enjoying being out with the bees.
Marshall, last time I was at Cedarwood Honey, I bought the creamed honey, some candles, a lip balm, and also the honey sticks because my girls really love those.
I would say the most popular honey is the wildflower. Everyone enjoys it because there are so many uses they can be done with it. People enjoy to cook with it, bake with it, as I've had some customers come back and say they've bought the cinnamon honey and used it as a substitute for sugar and made muffins with it. You can find many different kinds of honey. We have different flavors, but I would say the most popular one would be the wildflower and the creamed. And also we'd have to say the blueberry and the buckwheat, but I know I have a personal favorite too, is cinnamon and the lemon. It's also great.
The main market building is always a destination for us when we visit the St. Jacobs Farmers Market, and we love Cedarwood Honey. Their honey is a breakfast staple for us, whether it's on toast or bagels or sometimes in tea.
Well, I can say that I've been coming here to the St. Jacobs Market as a family when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Like, it was a big trip coming out to the market and seeing all the different vendors. And it's great to come inside because you can see so many different local farm industries here. It is great having my own little ones here at the booth too certain days. Especially right now, they're not in their school. So what better way to get a really good education?
Cedarwood Honey is a family-run beekeeping operation that brings over 25 years of the beekeeping experience to the southwestern Ontario area. Their focus is to provide 100% local honey to the customer.
So don't forget to check them out in the main market building at the St. Jacobs Farmers Market. Tell us about riding a motorcycle. What I imagine is you put your helmet on and you get on your bike and you go. And for a little while, you have really no awareness of the pandemic around you, unless you see somebody on a sidewalk with a mask or maybe somebody in a car with a mask on. But otherwise, life must feel pretty normal on a motorcycle, right?
You know what? Life on a motorcycle during the pandemic has been the best because there was hardly anyone out on the roads at first. So I felt like Mad Max, like, what's going on here? Let's just rev this thing up and go. It was like essentially no cops on the road. So I had to be careful, but it was awesome. And it does feel that way. It's, I always joke because my motorcycle is a one-seater. I changed it over to a one-seater. So I'm very much like a lone wolf out on the streets, which I love. I like being solitary and just going out on the open road. But this was very much a midlife crisis. I'm not going to lie. I had a really good friend of mine, the one that owned the art store, who passed away. And he was the type of guy that lived life to the fullest. And he was always in a good mood. Even when he wasn't in a good mood, he was still like positive. And as he was going through what he went through, he told me, like, oh, you get one kick at this, one kick in the can. That's it. You're not going to come back and do this all over again. And if you believe in that, good for you, but I don't. And he didn't. And I always wanted to ride a motorcycle. I just always wanted one. So I was like, that's it. Brad said I have to do this. So I have to do this. And so I went and I got my license. I remember my wife at the time was like, are you sure this is what you want to do? Like, yeah, absolutely. And I think she thought I was joking at the time because I kept kind of telling her, like, I'm going to go and get the license. Oh, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thinking, this will just sort of fade away eventually. And then I got the license. And then one day I turned to her and I said, okay, I'm going to go buy my motorcycle now. And she's like, yeah, okay. And then like an hour later I came home. She's like, where were you? And I said, oh, I just went and bought a motorcycle. And she's like, what? And was completely surprised. And I said, yeah, I told you I was getting a motorcycle. She didn't think it was real. And now I remember the first time I got on the motorcycle and I was driving down Westmount because I used to live in Forest Hill. And I went down Westmount and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, this is amazing, the whole way. People probably thought it was nuts, but there is nothing like the feeling of like having literally nothing around you. It's the closest I'm going to feel to flying, really. I'm a bird on a bike and I love it. And I suggest everyone should get a bike.
So a few years back, I hit a deer with my car on Manitou.
I think the deer hit you.
The deer hit me. Yeah, it's like getting hit by lightning. Like you never see it coming, and it was a big hit. It was like $15,000 damage to the car and a dead deer. And what it got me thinking about was how. So afterwards, anytime I'm not on any road, but I mean a road like, let's say, you know how Fisher Hallman turns into Behringer, and now you have lots of trees on either side of you. Well, I'm looking for deer now all the time. So when you ride a motorcycle, something like even a plastic bag blowing in the wind can impact you differently than driving a car. Can you talk about the differences for you between driving a car and driving a motorcycle, and the things that you're thinking of or are aware of when you're on a motorcycle compared to driving a car?
So one of the fundamental differences between riding a motorcycle and driving a car for me is my state of mind. So like, let's say I'm not having a great day and I'm upset. Let's say I've been crying. I could still get in my car and like put on some sad music really loud and like maybe sing and cry at the same time. You can't do that on a motorcycle. You have to have like all your faculties on a motorcycle. So I'll never drink. I have like a beer and then get on my motorcycle. It's not a thing that I do. I can't be upset and get on a motorcycle because there are way too many things around me that I have to be paying attention to. So you're right. Like a plastic bag would be a completely different thing than if I was in my car. Like the way they described it when I was taking the motorcycle course was, those are the people in cages. You're not caged. Nothing will protect you. Everything will affect you, whether it's a fly or whether it's like a pebble, it will affect you. So you have to be like completely aware of what's going on. And they also made it sound really scary. And it resonated with me because I want to be here as long as possible. But I'm also very aware of like my age and how quick my reflexes are as opposed to when I'm in my 20s. So my head is always, it's like a bobblehead, really. I'm always looking around, making sure that the people behind me aren't too close, maybe making sure that, try to be as safe as possible. at all times. So, and always feeling the wind hit you. There's something about that makes you very much aware that you're out in the open.
Sounds a little bit about how maybe like a boater or a canoeer might start their journey for a day. Like, is it a good day to go out on the lake? Like, is today a good day for a ride? Like, you must consider that before you hop on your bike.
I'm certainly not a fair weather rider. I don't mind riding in the rain. I actually, when I took my exit course, it was in the rain, and so I was like, man, if I could do this,
I could do anything.
do anything within reason. So I very much don't mind going out in the rain and riding in the rain, but I'm very aware of all the safety things when it comes to riding a motorcycle. That never leaves my mind. And that was something that they had actually mentioned, year 2, you might feel like, hey, I can do anything and stop doing things that are really important. But no, the only thing I probably don't do, which is a big no-no, is that I don't always ride with a riding jacket, especially in the hot summers. I don't, but I should. And now that I'm saying this out loud, I will start.
Yeah, now you have to. Everyone's going to be like,
I know. Lily is such a liar. She's out with a helmet. No, I'm just kidding.
We'll see photos posted of you with no jacket on. I think this is marvelous. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, it doesn't sound like a midlife crisis choice to me. This sounds like a well thought out, finding your purpose plan in all facets of your life.
Well, yeah. But you know what? When you're doing it at 42, it seems a little nutty. What are you doing now? You're going to be a barber. You're getting a motorcycle. What's going on with you? You're my dad now. What's going on though?
One of my favorite scenes in the TV series 6 Feet Under, which is one of my favorite TV series of all time, is Nate on his motorcycle. I guess they're out in California, I think. And it's like an aerial shot. He's just going. He's completely by himself on his motorcycle. And the song Don't Fear the Reaper, I think it's by Blue Oyster Cult, is playing. It's got to be one of the most powerful, awesome things. And when I see a motorcyclist all alone like that with nothing around them but lots of space and big blue sky, I always think it's like watching a bird catch in the wind, right? It's like a big eagle catch in the wind. It must be wow, that must feel like complete and utter freedom,
It does. It's so weird. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that's such a cliche. It is true. You're on the back roads going to Stratford. It's just you and nobody else. It's amazing. It's again, the closest thing I'll feel to flying, which is awesome.
You want a motorcycle, but you'll never get one, right?
No, I'd be scared to death. Yeah. I also, anytime I've handled a motorcycle, the weight of it feels like it's 1,000 tons.
My bike is really small, so that was actually something that I was really aware of. It's also my starter bike, as I like to say, because there's always dreams of a bigger bike. But yeah, if you couldn't lift that bike during the course, you would never be able to have a license. So yeah, it's a real thing. That thing falling on you, good luck.
Let's talk about that for a minute. For all that, is gearheads the right term? Let's talk about that for people who are into bikes. What do you have and what's your dream bike?
Oh my goodness. Well, what I currently have is a Suzuki TU 250. It looks like a classic 1970s motorcycle. And the only reason I know that is because every dude at a stop sign will ask me that. Whoa, that's a classic right there. I'm like, no, it's actually 2019. And it's fuel injected, and their minds are instantly blown away. I'm like, you should get one. It's amazing. My dream bike, yeah, it's probably a Triumph Bonneville. I don't need anything major. I don't need anything big. I just need something that looks good.
And are you working on this bike, or do you have? Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a lot of things to it. I'd changed the seat out. I've changed the lighting. It looks more like a cafe racer now. I get lots of little head turns. People always commenting. It's really nice. And it really made me feel really confident to be around something that I could just work on and change. And I'm a very tactile person. So this just speaks to my heart, which I love. So yeah.
Lily is wearing a black t-shirt that says in just, I think, kind of simple font, Kitchener Waterloo. And I first saw this shirt at Stitch and Kitsch. You know Stitch and Kitsch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love it.
And I just, I don't know, it made me so happy to see that shirt. I remember thinking, I don't think I've ever even seen a shirt before that just simply said, Kitchener Waterloo on it. Yeah. And it made me feel very proud. I think a lot of feelings went through me. But as we start to wind down our conversation here, Lily, talk about Waterloo region and what it's been like for you to live here all these years, and to and what it means to you now.
And maybe now to be creating art here.
Yeah.
Well, it's changed so much. It's like I came from Guelph. This was the only place I could afford to buy a house. And now I probably wouldn't be able to afford to buy a house here.
None of us could.
I feel like there's like such a vibrancy to the city, and there's so many amazing young people creating art that is meaningful and impactful and like rooted in like social justice that I love. I'm slowly starting to feel like it's not just like a German hub anymore, but it's a hub for a lot of like different creative people and people that really want to change the world. And I mean, I'm with someone that wants to change the world, so it's really easy to kind of be centered in that. But I feel like Kitchener-Waterloo is in a transformative time right now, and I am so excited to be here to see where it goes. This has been home for me for a while now, and I can't imagine it being anywhere else, to be perfectly honest. I had actually thought about leaving a few years ago, and it didn't happen, and I'm glad it didn't happen, because I feel like there's just so much happening here that I want to be a part of, that I want to see, and I feel like as a lesbian in this city too, the queer community is hidden. It's quiet. I feel like they're all middle-aged and we're just at home, like, to be perfectly honest. There's no bars or anything. But I feel like places like Spectrum and different organizations in town, they're doing some pretty amazing things for the queer community as well. And I'm excited to be here for that too, to see all these amazing young kids that are just like, this is me, I'm authentic. And it gives me lots of hope for good things in the city.
Hey all, thanks for meeting us in Bonn Park. Please like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on the platform that you're listening to. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bonn Park Podcast. Original music by Alan Lung.